The Melbourne production of Love Never Dies has been ravishingly filmed and is now to be released globally on DVD and Blu-ray. Andrew Lloyd Webber, how did it come about?
Came about because I had the press footage from Melbourne, which I was showing to a couple of people in England who had obviously not seen the Australian production, which is completely different to the London one. And somebody from NBC Universal called by about the Phantom 25th, and he said, "What's this?" I said, "It's the Melbourne production of Love Never Dies." He said, "Well, can I watch a bit of it?" And 15 minutes in, he said, "We must film this. I want this." Like, he was more interested in Love Never Dies than he was in the Phantom 25th. And it was extraordinary because I said, "Well, fine, fantastic." But I had no idea that the technology really existed to do something at this level when it's really filmed live in a theatre.
Did you need to be persuaded, or were you a sceptic at all, or you just went with the flow?
Well, no, because frankly, the Love Never Dies production in London didn't work. I was and remain convinced that it's one of my best scores, and it's certainly, if not my favourite, it's very close, and I think it might be my favourite, really. And I really was so delighted that there was the possibility of a permanent record of a production that I think is as good as anything that I've ever had of any of my pieces, that I just leapt at it and said, "Please, please, and anything I can do to help, I will." But since I had nothing to do with the Australian production at all, really, really my input in this was really only when we were making choices about editing.
You said you had nothing to do with it, but in a way you did have something to do with it because you gave them permission to do their best or their worst. I wonder if you could talk about how the Melbourne production came about.
Well, the Melbourne production came about quite simply because Simon Phillips, who directed it there, came to me and said, "Look, I think there's a great piece here trying to get out, and I would like to have a crack at doing it completely differently, and completely different design, completely different approach." And he introduced me to a woman called Gabriela Tylisova, who's the designer, who's done a most extraordinary job. In fact, in a way, reminds me a little bit of Maria Bjornsson, who did the original Phantom design. Gabrielle has that same sort of European sensibility, and I don't know, it all came together. I worked with them a little bit, and I said there were a couple of changes that, with hindsight, I'd like to make. They were very keen to do those. And Simon also suggested one or two things to me, which I thought were right, about making the character of the Phantom darker and expanding it a bit. And the result is what we've got.